President Trump in Turkey right now for a two-day NATO summit. He's wasting no time calling out America's allies over the Iran conflict.
We weren't treated well because we did something in Iran. We don't need anybody's help. I didn't even want their help. But before I asked, they said they wouldn't be there. I was testing to see whether or not they'd be there because I've long said that we help them, but I'm not sure that they'd be there for us. Why are we spending hundreds of billions of dollars and they're not there for us? We've always been there for them.
Oil climbing today after Iran reportedly fired missiles at commercial ships near the Strait of Hormuz. As for markets, a sell-off in chip stocks is sending the NASDAQ down right now. Jonathan Honig, make sense of Iran and the markets and what you're seeing here.
Well, there's lots to talk about. A big thing here from the market perspective is that the market is actually broadening. That's a good thing. The Russell 2000, this is the small stocks, it's actually up by about 21% year to date. People aren't talking about this, but it's kicking the Dow and the S&P's keister, as they say. It's only up by about 10%. So small stocks are having their best first half in about 35 years. I think there are places to make money here, but the political scene, no question, is taking a lot of the oxygen out of the room. And the fact that Iran is not acting like the vanquished enemy that they are, I think is putting a little bit of a hamper in the momentum for a lot of stocks right here.
New all-time highs. Speaking of broadening, J&J, Allstate, Coca-Cola, Travelers, Bank of America.
But weren't you talking about broadening in the first hour, though? Like, do you agree with that? He was talking.
No, well, it is. There's nothing to agree or disagree about because it's just a fact that these stocks are making
a move.
Not
the Mag 7.
New 52-week highs. Aflac. I do think, though, that if the tech comes tumbling down, so goes the market.
As they say, when the paddy wagon comes, they take the good girls with the bad.
Why does it have to be girls?
It's just the old
This is
thing.
what they say.
Yeah.
Yes.
Chicago, I
But
guess.
there is a broadening
Jonathan's
happening.
Yep.
Okay, so, Jackie, the Iran angle of this. We're in the negotiation phase. They paused because they're having a funeral for the Ayatollah. I don't know how long that goes on.
It's going to go on.
I guess as long as they need it to go on politically, maybe. They're firing at ships.
Yeah.
Okay. The markets, I know oil's up today. It's up $70 or so. I mean, but it's still $70.
It's marginal.
So have markets, have traders, has the world kind of given up on Iran's leverage over the Strait? Or do you think things could get a little bit worse here?
I mean, I think we're in a holding pattern in that they keep poking at us, and the president is still saying that he wants to work on a diplomatic solution. And as long as the markets, the bond market and oil prices stay within the ranges that they have been, then there's no rush for the president really to have to do anything with respect to that. But I'm watching the NATO stuff carefully, and then I'm going to tie this back to Iran, because last night we were talking to one of the ambassadors, and I was asking him about NATO and this idea of the allies not stepping up to help the United States. I was very underwhelmed by that, and to me it seemed like, you know, when it comes to the paying the check at dinner, and I made this joke last night, but I'll do it again. When it comes to making the contribution or going to grab the check, they seem to have those kind of alligator arms, and that's a real issue for President Trump. What I don't like is the narrative that is emerging from the allies. I mean, they have to say something why they didn't step up, and they're all saying, well, we didn't have any notice. You know, you just went and did this, America and Israel, and you coordinated together, but if you wanted our help, you needed to give us a heads up that you were doing this. Listen, I'm no expert in wartime strategy, but I do know the more people you tell with respect to what you're going to do, you kind of blow your cover, and that sometimes it's not always strategically in your benefits or, you know, strategic in your benefit to go and tell the whole world that you're planning a particular operation. So, you know, I get it. You have to say something to rebut this, but I don't really like that argument. I want to see NATO contribute more money. I want to see NATO have our back, because they certainly expect us to have their back. And we have when it comes to the Russia-Ukraine conflict, at least financially speaking, we have. So, you know, I think that this adds some tension, because President Trump, if you watched him this morning, he's definitely making nice with everybody. And he was talking to Erdogan and all of that. But he is not going there for no reason and with no objective in mind.
Nice, but not that nice. I mean, he's kind of going in there and saying what he wants to say. I mean, he's a guy who he doesn't mind a little tension. He doesn't mind creating a little tension.
It doesn't make him uncomfortable.
But I kind of wonder, Taylor, is that good? There is unproductive tension, and there is productive tension. When tension needs to exist, it's probably good to let it happen, maybe to introduce the issues that create that tension.
Sure.
NATO needs tension,
Yep.
do they not?
I agree. I'd actually want a little bit more action and less talk. We know that we've been funding NATO. NATO did not show up for us. We sat here 2 months ago, 3 months ago, and said, help us reopen the strait, help us demine. And NATO kind of said, no thanks, we'll kind of sit this one out. So I agree, we should be talking about this, but we've been talking about this since Trump 1.0. We got them to finally boost their sort of spending as a percent of GDP, but I don't know, I'm kind of over the talk, frankly, because all of our money is going out the door. But we can save that for another day. I am pleasantly surprised that oil is not higher. Oil only at 70, the market's only off 0.5 or 1% when you get more of those headlines about Iran, attacking ships in the Strait. I think that we would have been higher. So I like that. So again, I think this is a market that is looking at, we talked about the underlying fundamentals that are very, very strong. I was pulling up my Bank of America tracker, and they, as you guys know, they track all of the sort of deposits. If you're a Bank of America account holder, and they're one of the largest in the country, they can track the deposits and the outflows. Job growth is solid. They're seeing high deposits that are up 1.7% year over year. You're seeing low income wage growth that is picking up strongly. And then, Brian, I pulled out my handy dandy chart again on AI. This is a market that share of job postings containing AI is up. It's now 6% of all job postings mention AI. A couple years ago, that number was 1 or 2%. So I think the market is excited that AI will bring more jobs and help us to be more productive, as we've talked about. And it's not going to be this apocalypse where we need sort of these big social handouts because no one's going to have a job and AI is coming for all of us. So the only sort of risk, though, that I'll see, and I'll end it, and Jonathan, feel free to disagree. To Jackie's point, we're kind of in this waiting period. And I think we had a really good first quarter earnings. I think we're waiting for, third quarter, second quarter, third quarter, first quarter, second quarter, waiting to see if the hyperscalers start to pull back on the spending or if they continue, and then the ripple effects into memory. So as long as they are spending, I think the market continues to power higher. If you start to get glimpses in the next earnings season that start at the end of this month and for the second quarter, that they're pulling back a little bit, that could be one thing I think that makes this market nervous if that is what has been powering this market.
Well, I mean, AI is going to, yes, destroy, but yes, also create many, many jobs in the process. There are no elevator operators anymore, and that's a good thing. But the situation in Iran, I think, is still the wild card here. What is the value of a deal with an enemy that still, to this day, says that they want to kill you and is actively taking steps such as launching missiles? So I think that's the real wild card here. And as you mentioned, oil's not up that much. It still has a lot of room to roar. I think that the second half is going to have probably even more fireworks than July 4th.
That made me think about inventories. I haven't thought about inventories for more than a week, Cushing inventories in particular. And I'm curious to know, are we still at bottoms on those? Have we started to rebuild? Is that part of the oil story?
I was not looking at U.S. inventories. I was thinking about Chinese inventories. Because President Trump might be at NATO, but China really controls where oil goes from here, whether it continues to fall and settles at 60 and stays there.
Because they've pulled back on demand so much.
So China is what prevented oil from going way north of $100 a barrel, 150 on Brent, and staying there because it cut its imports so dramatically. It cut China I'm trying to remember, reduced its foreign imports by like 50%. It cut its consumption by what is the equivalent of what France and Germany consume.
That sounds right.
Every daily, and it had been stockpiling excess oil. I think it was about 1.5 million barrels a day for several years, but has just disappeared from the market. But it puts the world in a very precarious situation. It would hurt the economies of oil exporters, crude exporters in the Middle East. It would hurt our economy. Potentially the energy on that part, the energy economy, but it would allow the Federal Reserve to lower interest rates if inflation really eases and cools off and stays in check. But it's a frightening thought that Communist China, because of what it was consuming in terms of crude and what it is not importing today, that it's in the driver's seat in that way. Also, Javier Blas wrote a piece about that, by the way.
Yep.
But he also noted that because there have been 3 attacks in just the last 24 hours on LNG tankers, oil and LNG tankers in the Strait of Hormuz by Iran, at least 2, if not 3.
The hell of a ceasefire.
His history would suggest that the U.S. would act at this point.
Well, Trump's talked about that.
Militarily.
I mean, he keeps saying that, talking about finishing the job. We might still see that done.
Well, it seems like Iran is very much inviting him to do that. One wonders why that's the case. I think they feel their leverage slipping away, frankly, and part of this is trying
Or they're
to
testing
maintain.
him because he keeps saying it and doing nothing. And so they keep poking the bear to see what's going to happen. I mean, I'm at the point where I'm kind of like, are you going to do it or not?
Didn't China test fire a missile yesterday?
They did.
So-
ballistic missile with no warhead, obviously.
But China's, this states the obvious, but is we should live in fear and treat China like I know, and President Trump is going back to Asia for APAC, not APAC,
I don't know when
the
that is.
Asia Pacific.
Right.
We should treat China like more of an adversary.
They're always playing offense.